The office tower, a giant glass needle pointing at the gray sky, was mostly dark. On the 20th floor, a single square of light glowed. Inside, Leo sat surrounded by the quiet hum of computers and the soft glow of his monitor. Numbers and charts filled his screen. His job was to make sense of them, to find the stories they hid. He was good at it, but it was quiet, lonely work. He liked the peace of the late hours, when the phone stopped ringing and the only sound was the tap of his own keyboard. He saved his work with a click and stretched, his back stiff. Looking out the window, he saw the weather had turned. What was a drizzle earlier was now a proper rain, coming down in thick sheets, making the city lights below smear and blur. He packed his old, sensible bag, turned off the light, and made his way to the elevator, the soft soles of his shoes silent on the polished floor. The underground parking garage was cold and echoed with the sound of dripping water. He was walking towards his own modest car when another sound caught his ear. It wasn't the rain. It was a sharp, frustrated sigh, followed by the solid thunk of something metal being dropped out near one of the pillars. Under a flickering light, a woman was standing by a very expensive-looking silver car. One look told the whole story. The back tire was completely flat, a sad, wrinkled pancake against the concrete. The woman had one hand pressed to her forehead. She was dressed in nice clothes, a professional blouse and skirt, now looking a bit helpless. A small, shiny wrench lay on the wet ground near her feet, as if it had betrayed her. Leo paused. Everyone else was gone. It was just them in this concrete cave. His mother's voice, clear as anything, popped into his head. You see someone who needs a hand, you give it. Don't just stand there thinking. He wasn't a mechanic, but he knew how to change a tire. His own old car had taught him that lesson more than once. He walked over, not too fast, so he wouldn't startle her. Excuse me? Looks like you're having a bit of trouble there. She turned. She looked stressed, her eyes wide. Oh, yes, it just went flat. I have a big meeting first thing in the morning, miles away from here, and She trailed off, looking at the tire like it was a personal enemy. I can change it for you, Leo said simply, if you have a spare. It's not a problem. Her face changed from worry to surprise, then to a kind of desperate hope. Really? Are you sure? It's awful out, and you must want to get home. It's okay, he said, already putting his bag down in a dry spot. Better than leaving you stuck here. Let's see what we've got. He found the spare and the jack in the trunk. The rain was coming down harder now, blowing in through the open entrance of the garage in cold gusts. As he knelt down, the cold, dirty water from the floor immediately soaked through the knees of his trousers. The fancy car was low to the ground, and he had to fiddle to get the jack positioned just right. His hands, good with a keyboard, fumbled a little with the stiff, cold lug nuts. The woman, who said her name was Maya, held a flashlight from her phone for him, her own suit jacket getting spotted with rain. She kept apologizing. I'm so sorry. This is terrible. You're getting soaked. I feel awful. Leo just shook his head, grunting a little as he finally loosened the first stubborn nut. Don't worry about it. This happens. Better in a garage than on the side of a highway at night. They talked a little as he worked. She asked if he worked in the building. He said yes, in the data department, and that he'd been working late on a report. She just nodded, saying she'd been visiting someone on the executive floors. He didn't ask for details. He was focused on the task, his glasses slipping down his nose, his shirt sticking to his back with a mix of rain and effort. It took about 40 minutes. His good office clothes were ruined trousers stained with grease and grime, sleeves soaked, hair plastered to his forehead. Finally, he tightened the last lug nut on the small, temporary spare tire. He stood up, wincing as his knees cracked. and wiped his filthy hands on an old rag he found in his own car. Maya looked from the perfectly installed spare tire to Leo's bedraggled state. Her relief was total. "Thank you," she said, and she meant it. "Really, I don't know what I would have done. Please, let me. I have to give you something for your trouble." She reached for her purse. Leo held up a greasy hand, smiling for the first time. It was a genuine, tired smile. "No, really. Please don't. Anyone would have done the same." He meant it. To him, this was just a normal thing to do. A person needed help. You helped. She looked at him for a long minute, as if seeing something surprising. "Then at least let me know your name?" "I work with my father. I'd like him to know what you did." "It's Leo," he said. "But really, it's nothing. Just get to your meeting safe. Okay? That tire is small, so drive slowly." He gave her a small wave, picked up his soggy bag, and walked to his own car. As he drove out of the garage into the storm, he felt the damp chill of his clothes, but also a small, warm glow inside. It felt good to help. It was simple. High above, in a corner office that had a perfect view of the parking garage entrance, a man stood by the window, holding a phone to his ear. He was Mr. Braxton, the head of operations. He had been finishing a call when the movement below caught his eye. He saw the silver car, the woman, and the man working on it. He saw the man's face under the garage light as he waved goodbye. He saw the woman Maya watching him drive away. Mr. Braxton's thin lips pressed into a harder line. He knew exactly who Maya was, and he watched a junior employee from the data pool, whose face he vaguely recognized from company IDs, leave the scene. He didn't see kindness. He didn't see a simple good deed. In his world, every action had a motive, a calculation. He saw an opportunity. He saw a young man trying to get close to power, to create a debt, to use a chance meeting for his own gain. It was, to Mr. Braxton, a blatant and foolish act of ambition, and it was done on company property, which made it his business. He made a mental note of the employee's name, which he would check first thing in the morning. Such disrespect for protocol could not stand. Leo woke up the next morning feeling the ache in his shoulders from the night before. His good trousers were stained and ruined, lying in a heap by the laundry basket. He didn't mind, though. As he got dressed in a fresh, simple shirt and tie, he thought about the woman's relieved face. That was worth a pair of trousers. He had a quiet breakfast, his mind already drifting to the spreadsheet he needed to finish at the office. The morning felt normal. The sun was out, drying up last night's rain. At the office, people were getting their coffee, chatting about their weekends. Leo sat at his desk, in his small cubicle among many others, and got to work. The numbers on his screen soon pulled him in. He liked the order of it, the quiet logic dot, so when a tap came on his cubicle wall around 10, he looked up, blinking. It was Paula from Human Resources. She didn't smile. Her face was polite, but blank, like a closed door. "Leo? Mr. Braxton would like to see you in his office. Now, please." A small knot formed in Leo's stomach. Mr. Braxton was the head of operations. He was a man who existed in emails with a lot of red text, and in meetings people talked about in nervous whispers afterwards. Leo had never spoken to him directly. Why would he want to see a data analyst? "Of course," Leo said, his voice sounding calm even to him. He saved his work and followed Paula out of the cubicle farm, feeling the eyes of a few colleagues on his back. The walk to the executive wing was long. The carpet got thicker. The walls had actual paintings, not posters. Paula opened a heavy wooden door. "Go on in." Mr. Braxton's office was huge, with a view of the whole city. It was terribly neat. Not a paper out of place. Mr. Braxton himself sat behind a vast, empty desk. He wasn't old, but he looked hard, like a stone that had been polished smooth by cold water. He didn't look up as Leo entered, just finished writing something with a precise scratch of his pen. "Sit," he said, without looking. Leo sat in the chair facing the desk. It was lower than Mr. Braxton's chair. He felt himself sinking into the soft leather. Finally, Mr. Braxton looked up. His eyes were a pale, flat color. They moved over Leo, from his sensible shoes to his carefully combed hair, as if inspecting a document for errors. "Do you know why you are here?" Mr. Braxton's voice was even, without any warmth or anger. It was just a fact, stated. Leo's mind raced. Had he made a mistake in the data? Had one of his reports been wrong? "No, sir, I don't." Mr. Braxton leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Last night, in the company parking garage, you were seen engaging with a visitor to our executive suite. A female visitor." The knot in Leo's stomach tightened, but also he felt a flicker of relief. So it was about that. He could explain. "Oh, yes, sir. Her tire was flat. She was stranded. I just helped her change it. It was raining quite hard." "You just helped her," Mr. Braxton repeated, his tone making the simple words sound suspicious, like a secret code. "You spent a considerable amount of company time on company property, interacting with a high-value associate of this firm." Leo felt the first real prickle of confusion. "It was after hours, sir. I was leaving, and she wasn't an associate. She was just someone who needed help." "Do not tell me what she was," Mr. Braxton said, the first hint of ice entering his voice. "I know exactly who she is. The point is your conduct. Soliciting personal contact, attempting to create a personal obligation with someone connected to the highest levels of management. It shows profound poor judgment, a complete disregard for professional boundaries." Leo's mouth went dry. The room felt airless. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a completely different story, one being written over the top of what really happened. "Sir, that's not what happened at all. I didn't solicit anything. She offered to pay me, and I refused. I didn't even know who she was. I just changed a tire." Mr. Braxton waved a hand, dismissing the words like a bad smell. "Your interpretation is irrelevant. The appearance of misconduct is enough. This company operates on integrity and protocol. We cannot have junior employees loitering, creating situations, trying to leverage chance encounters." He said the word leverage with special distaste. "It creates a security risk and a reputation risk." He opened a folder on his immaculate desk. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Leo could see his own name at the top. "Effective immediately, your employment with Axiom Corp. is terminated. The grounds are gross misconduct and violation of company ethical codes regarding fraternization and solicitation." The words hit Leo like physical blows. Asterisk terminated. Gross misconduct. Asterisk, they echoed in the silent, plush office. His face grew hot, then cold. "You're firing me? For helping someone with a flat tire? You are being dismissed for unprofessional and opportunistic behavior," Mr. Braxton corrected, his voice returning to that flat, factual tone. He pushed the paper across the desk. "Sign this. It acknowledges you have been informed of the termination and will comply with the exit process. Your final check will be mailed. You are to leave the premises immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal items." Leo looked at the paper. The words blurred. He thought of his mother's voice. You see someone who needs a hand, you give it. And now he was being punished for it. A deep, solid anger began to rise in him, but it was trapped under a mountain of shock and disbelief. "I don't understand," he said, his voice quiet, almost a whisper. "You are not required to understand. You are required to comply." Mr. Braxton pressed a button on his phone. "Security to my office, please." The next 20 minutes were a humiliating blur. A large, quiet security guard stood beside his cubicle as Leo, his face burning, emptied his desk drawer into a small cardboard box. A photo of his family, a spare charger, a lucky trinket his niece had given him. His coworkers pretended not to look, their heads bent low over their computers, but he could feel their stares. The walk back through the office felt a mile-long dot at the main glass doors. The security guard took his company ID badge right out of his hand. The electronic reader gave a sad final beep as it was deactivated. "Have a good day," the guard said, not unkindly, but the words felt hollow. Then Leo was outside. The sun was still shining. People were walking, talking on phones, living their normal Tuesday. He stood on the sidewalk, holding his pathetic box of things, the polished tower of Axiom Corp looming behind him. The warm feeling from last night was gone, crushed completely. It was replaced by a cold, heavy weight of injustice. He hadn't just lost his job. He had been told he was a bad person, an opportunist, a rule breaker. And the worst part was, the man who did it, Mr. Braxton, believed it. He looked at Leo's simple act of help and saw only a sneaky plan. In that moment, under the bright, uncaring sun, Leo felt more invisible and small than he ever had in his life. The days after felt strange, like walking through thick fog. Leo moved through his small apartment, the silence louder than any office noise. He applied for jobs online, sending his resume into a void that rarely answered back. The few interviews he got always ended the same way. "We see you left your last position at Axiom Corp. Can you tell us why?" When he tried to explain, the story sounded weak, even to his own ears. "I was fired for helping a woman change a tire." He saw the doubt in their eyes. They'd nod, say, "I see," and he knew he wouldn't get a call back. The official reason from Axiom, if anyone checked, would be vague but damning. Termination for violation of company policy. The shame was a constant companion. He replayed the scene in Mr. Braxton's office over and over. Had he said the wrong thing? Should he have walked away in the rain? His mother, when he told her, was furious, but not at him. "A man who punishes kindness has a stone for a heart," she said. But her anger couldn't pay the rent. A week to the day after his dismissal, the envelope arrived. It was thick, expensive paper, not the usual bills or flyers. His name and address were written in crisp, formal handwriting. There was no return address. He opened it carefully, half expecting more bad news. Inside was an invitation, printed on heavy cardstock. Gold letters shimmered up at him. "The Axiom. Corporation **** cordially invites you to its **** annual strategic gala and benefit **** in recognition of vision and partnership. **** below were details of time and place, a famous opulent hotel in the city center. A black tie event. Leo stared at it, completely baffled. This was for executives, investors, important people, not for dismissed data analysts. It had to be a mistake. A cruel joke, maybe sent by someone from the office who wanted to rub salt in the wound. He held the expensive paper, feeling its sharp edges, and a hot flush of anger spread through his chest. Was this Braxton's idea? To mock him? He almost threw it straight into the recycling bin. But something stopped him. The formal handwriting. The sheer cost of the thing. It felt too deliberate to be a simple prank. A wild, impossible thought flickered. What if it was from her? The woman from the garage, Maya. She had asked for his name. She'd said she worked with her father. But she wouldn't. Could she? He dismissed it. People like that didn't involve themselves in the problems of people like him. For 2 days, the invitation sat on his kitchen table, a silent, confusing object. It gnawed at him. Curiosity, that stubborn human itch, finally won. He had nothing to lose but an evening, and maybe he'd get some closure. Or maybe he'd just see the world that had so easily kicked him out. He didn't own a tuxedo. He rented one from a shop where the sleeves were a little too short and the shoes pinched his feet. Looking at himself in the mirror the night of the gala, he didn't see a guest. He saw an imposter. He took a deep breath and headed out. The hotel was a palace of light and sound. Chandeliers the size of cars glittered overhead. Women wore dresses that looked like spun moonlight, and men laughed with the easy confidence of money and power. Leo moved through the crowd like a ghost, feeling the rough edge of his rented cuff against his wrist. He grabbed a glass of sparkling water from a passing tray just to have something to do with his hands. No one spoke to him. He was wallpaper. He found a spot near a large potted plant, half hidden, and just watched. He saw Mr. Braxton across the room, holding a glass of wine, laughing with a group of older men. He looked polished and powerful, a king in his castle. The sight made Leo's stomach turn. Then the lights subtly dimmed, and a spotlight hit the main stage. The CEO of Axiom, Robert Thorne, a man with silver hair and a kind, strong face, walked to the podium to polite applause. He gave a short speech about the company's year, about innovation and legacy. Leo listened, feeling a strange pang. He had believed in that legacy once, in the quiet work of making things run better. But tonight, Mr. Thorne said, his voice warm, is not just about looking back. It's about the future. And no one represents our future more than the person who will be taking on a new, vital role in shaping our strategic direction. Someone who has spent years learning this business from the ground up and who brings a fresh, necessary perspective. It is my great pride, not just as a CEO, but as a father, to introduce her to you now. Please welcome my daughter and our new head of strategic initiatives. The name hung in the air for a second before Leo's brain processed it. He knew that name. He had heard it in a dark, rainy garage. Maya walked onto the stage. She was different, yet unmistakably the same woman. Her hair was up, and she wore a simple, elegant dark dress. But it was her face, the set of her eyes, that Leo remembered. The polite applause swelled. She hugged her father and turned to the microphone, smiling confidently at the crowd. Leo's heart was hammering against his ribs. The CEO's daughter. The high-value associate Mr. Braxton had talked about. The pieces clicked into place with a cold, hard finality. Braxton thought Leo had known. He thought the whole thing was a calculated move. The injustice of it all burned brighter than any chandelier. Maya began her speech, thanking people, talking about new beginnings. Her eyes swept the room. They passed over the glittering crowd, over the dignitaries, and then they stopped. They landed on Leo, half hidden by the plant near the back. For a second, her speech faltered. Just a tiny hitch, a quick breath. Her eyes widened, not with surprise at seeing him, but with a sharp, focused recognition. It was as if she had been looking for him. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod in his direction, not a greeting, but an acknowledgement. "I see you." Then her expression changed. The polished, professional smile softened into something more serious, more determined. She looked away from him and back to the crowd, but the energy in the room had shifted subtly, at least for Leo. "Thank you for that welcome," she said, her voice clear and strong now. "But before I talk about where we are going, I need to address something important. Something that speaks to the character of this company, not just its strategy." She paused, letting the room grow quiet. Leo held his breath. Mr. Braxton, near the front, took a slow sip of his wine, looking politely attentive. "A week ago," Maya continued, her gaze sweeping the crowd again, "I was in a difficult spot. My car had a flat tire, in the rain, late at night in our own corporate garage. I was stuck, and someone, an employee of this company, saw me and came to help. He didn't ask who I was. He didn't know. He got soaked to the skin, ruined his clothes, and spent his own time to help a stranger. He asked for nothing in return." A murmur rippled through the audience. People smiled, nodding. "A nice story." Maya's voice hardened. "His name is Leo Chun. He worked in our data analysis department. And for that act of basic human decency, for helping the CEO's daughter without knowing it, he was fired the very next day. Terminated for gross misconduct and solicitation." The murmuring stopped dead. The air was sucked out of the grand ballroom. Every head turned, looking for the man she named. Leo felt exposed, the spotlight of 1,000 eyes finding him without a light. On stage, Maya's eyes were now fixed on one person in the crowd, Mr. Braxton. His face had lost all its color. He stood frozen, the glass of wine in his hand forgotten. "A company," Maya said, her voice ringing with a quiet fury, "that punishes integrity has lost its way. That allows a petty interpretation of rules to override basic humanity does not deserve the loyalty of good people." She turned her head slightly, addressing the space where her father stood in the wings. "Effective immediately, I am recommending the suspension of the manager responsible for this decision, pending a full and serious review." She then looked back, past Braxton, directly at Leo from across the room. "Mr. Chun," she said, and the entire audience followed her gaze. "My father and I would like to speak with you. Please, would you join us?" In the crushing silence, all Leo could hear was the pounding of his own heart. The walk from his spot by the plant to the side of the stage felt longer than the walk out of the Axiom offices with his cardboard box. But this time, he wasn't being escorted out by security. He was being called forward by the future. For a moment, Leo couldn't move. The silence in the grand ballroom was a physical thing, heavy and tight. Every single person was looking at him. He saw their faces shocked, curious, some awkwardly avoiding his eyes. He saw Mr. Braxton, a statue of pale stone, his carefully constructed world cracking right in front of everyone. Then, a gentle touch on his elbow. A staff member in a neat suit was beside him, gesturing politely towards a side door near the stage. "This way, sir, if you please." The walk felt unreal. The sea of expensive gowns and tuxedos parted for him. He heard the soft rustle of fabric, the low hum of whispered conversation starting up again like an engine turning over. He didn't look at anyone, just kept his eyes on the door the staff member was leading him to. His rented shoes, which had pinched all night, now felt like he was walking on clouds, disconnected from the ground. The side door led into a hushed, carpeted hallway, far from the noise of the gala. After a few steps, another door was opened for him. He stepped into a quiet, elegant sitting room. It was nothing like Mr. Braxton's cold, imposing office. This room felt lived in. Soft lamps glowed on side tables. There were books on shelves, not just for show, but with worn spines. A large window showed the city lights twinkling peacefully below. Maya was already there, standing by a small sofa. She had taken off the dramatic evening wrap she'd worn on stage. Her father, Robert Thorne, stood near the fireplace. He looked more serious up close. The kind lines on his face were set in a look of deep thought. But his eyes, when they met Leo's, were not angry or cold. They were appraising and a little sad. "Leo," Maya said, and her voice was different. Now, not the commanding speaker from the stage, but the grateful, flustered woman from the garage. "Thank you for coming. I only found out what happened yesterday. When I was going through some departmental briefings, I saw a dismissal notice for improper conduct in the parking facility. I asked for the details. When they told me it was you, and why, she shook her head, her frustration clear. I am so very sorry. The CEO stepped forward, offering his hand. Mr. Chun, Robert Thorne. Please, sit down. Leo shook his hand. The grip was firm and steady. He sat on the edge of an armchair. He didn't know what to say. Thank you, he finally managed, for what you said out there. It was the bare minimum of what needed to be said, Mr. Thorne replied, sitting across from him. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. My daughter told me the story. What you did was a simple act of kindness. To see it twisted into something cynical, and then used to end a man's career. He sighed, a sound of genuine disappointment. It's a failure of my company's culture, and a personal failure of leadership that such a thing could happen without anyone questioning it. Leo listened. The tight knot of anger and shame that had been sitting in his chest for a week began to loosen, just a little. He was being heard. Braxton, Mr. Thorne continued, is a man who sees rules as walls, not guardrails. He sees a process, not the people in it. In his mind, he was protecting the company from a perceived threat, an employee trying to gain unfair advantage. His error was catastrophic, but in his own warped logic, he likely thought he was doing right. The CEO's tone was analytical, not forgiving. He is now on leave. A full review will happen, but his decision-making authority is suspended. Permanently, I should think. It was justice of a sort, but it didn't fill the hole that the past week had left. Leo was still the guy who'd been fired, whose record was stained dot, as if reading his mind. Maya spoke. We know an apology doesn't fix what was done to you, so we want to make it right. We are prepared to offer you a substantial financial settlement for the wrongful termination. It would be more than fair. You could take some time, look for a new role anywhere you like, without any financial pressure. It was a generous offer. More than generous. Leo imagined the relief of it, the safety net. He could pay his rent for a year, maybe more. He could start fresh somewhere completely new, where no one knew the story. But as he thought about it, sitting in that quiet room, something else stirred in him. He thought about the work he'd actually enjoyed. At Axiom, not the politics, not the managers like Braxton, but the work itself. The puzzle of the data, the satisfaction of a clear report that helped the project run smoothly. He thought about the other people in the cubicles. Good people who just kept their heads down. Was running away with a check the right thing? Or was it just another form of being pushed out? He took a deep breath. This was the most important conversation of his life, and he had to get the words right. Thank you, he said, looking first at Maya, then at her father. The settlement? It's very kind. And part of me wants to just take it and never look back. He paused, choosing his words carefully. But the other part of me thinks that if I do that, nothing really changes. A manager gets suspended. I get a check, and the company goes on. The culture that lets someone like Braxton think that firing a good person for a good deed was okay. That stays. He felt his courage building. I liked my job, sir. I believed in the work. Not the drama, just the work of making things function better. He turned to Maya. You talked about new strategies up there. A fresh perspective. I have a perspective from the very bottom of this company. I know how things really work on the ground, where the numbers you see at the top actually come from. I saw a lot of good people there who are just afraid to lift their heads up. He looked back at the CEO. So, I don't want my old job back. That's going backwards. And I don't want to just disappear with a check. He took another breath, the idea fully forming as he spoke it. If you're serious about change, about a fresh perspective, I'd like to work for the new Strategic Initiatives team. Not in a senior role. I'm not ready for that. But in a role where I can be a bridge. Where I can take that ground-level knowledge and help make sure the new strategies actually work for the people who have to carry them out. The room was silent for a long moment. Mr. Thorne studied Leo, his head slightly tilted. Maya was watching him too, a new light of interest in her eyes. It wasn't the pity or apology from before. It was the look of someone seeing a useful tool, a new piece on the board. You're asking for a challenge, Mr. Thorne said slowly. Not restitution, but a responsibility. Yes, sir, Leo said. The settlement fixes my problem. A new role, if we do it right, might help fix a part of the company's problem. A slow smile spread across Robert Thorne's face. It reached his eyes, making him look younger. He glanced at his daughter. Maya gave a single firm nod. All right, Mr. Chun, the CEO said, standing up. Leo stood as well. The settlement offer will still be prepared, as it's what you're owed. But we will also draft a new contract. A project lead position, reporting into the Strategic Initiatives Office. Your first task? He looked at Maya. Your first task, Maya said, standing to join them, will be to co-design a proposal with me. A new ethics and mentorship program. One that rewards integrity, not suspicion. One that encourages people to help each other, not punish them for it. We'll build it from the ground up. Leo felt a surge of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. It wasn't just about getting his job back. It was about turning the worst moment of his professional life into something that could make the company better. He shook Mr. Thorne's hand again. And then Maya's. I'd like that very much, he said as he left the quiet room to go back out into the night. The noise of the gala was just a distant murmur. The weight of the box from a week ago was gone. In its place was a different kind of weight, the weight of a chance, and the responsibility to use it well. He walked out of the hotel, not as a dismissed employee, but as a man with a very specific, very important job to do. The first Monday back was nothing like Leo expected. There was no fanfare, no grand announcement to the whole office. That wasn't Maya's style, or his own. Instead, a simple, clear email went out from the CEO's office. It announced the suspension of Mr. Braxton for a review of managerial practices. A separate paragraph welcomed Leo to the new Strategic Initiatives team as a project lead. The words were dry and corporate, but in the quiet cubicles of Axiom, they landed like a small earthquake. Leo's new desk wasn't in a cubicle. It was in a bright, open-plan area on a different floor, near Maya's office. It was still a desk, with a computer and a phone, but the air felt different, lighter. When he walked in that first morning, a few people he didn't know gave him small, careful smiles. Others just looked curious. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had a lot to prove. Maya called him into her office shortly after he arrived. It was neat, but with a whiteboard already covered in swirling notes and question marks. Right, she said, handing him a tablet. Forget settling in. Your first project is already live. We need to build the framework for the new ethics program. But I don't want it to be a list of rules from on high. That's what failed before. She pointed to the whiteboard. At the top, she'd written, asterisk, asterisk. What does doing the right thing actually look like at Axiom? Asterisk, asterisk. That's our starting question, Maya said. And you're going to help me find the answers. Not from managers, from the people who do the work. So that's what they did. For the next 2 weeks, Leo's job was to listen. He and Maya, or sometimes just Leo on his own, held small, informal meetings. They sat in break rooms with teams from customer service. They joined the logistics team for their morning huddle. They had coffee with junior accountants, and IT support staff at first. People were nervous. They saw the CEO's daughter and the guy from the famous gala story. But Leo knew how to talk to them. He was one of them, just a week removed. He'd say things like, "Remember the old rule about not contacting clients directly without a manager? How did that actually work when you were trying to solve a problem?" Or, "Have you ever seen someone help a coworker and get in trouble for bending a procedure?" Slowly, the stories came out. A woman from facilities told him how she'd been scolded for using a master key to let a pregnant employee into a locked office to get her forgotten medication. A young man in sales confessed he'd once shared a generic sales tip with a colleague from a rival team and was accused of breaching competitive protocol. Leo didn't just collect horror stories. He also found the good ones, the quiet victories. A software developer who spent his own weekend writing a simple script to automate a boring, day-long task for his entire team, just to make their lives easier. No one had ever officially thanked him. He brought these stories, these real human situations, back to the whiteboard in Maya's office. They weren't about grand corruption. They were about the daily friction between rigid rules and basic decency. They mapped out where the company's policies had become blind, where they stopped people from thinking for themselves. One afternoon, about 3 weeks in, they were wrestling with a big idea. "We can't just tell people, use your judgment," Maya said, frustrated. "That's too vague." Braxton thought he was using his judgment. Leo was staring at the story about the pregnant employee. "What if we don't make it about judgment?" he said slowly. "What if we make it about intent? We create a simple test. If an employee breaks a small rule to help another person, or to prevent a real problem, we ask, what was your intent? Was it to help or to harm? Was it for personal gain or for the good of the team or a client?" He picked up a marker and wrote on the board, "The principle of good faith. If the action was taken in good faith, meaning an honest intention to do right, even if it was a mistake, then it becomes a coaching moment, not a punishment. We talk about what they did, why it was brave, and maybe what a better way might have been next time. We protect the intent. We correct the method." Maya was quiet, looking at the words. "That flips the whole script," she said finally. "It shifts the focus from fear of punishment to learning and responsibility. It assumes people are good until proven otherwise." "That's the idea," Leo said. "The rule isn't king. The company's purpose, and its people, are." The good faith principle became the beating heart of their new program. They built training around real scenarios Leo had collected. They designed a mentorship system that paired younger employees with experienced ones, not to police them, but to give them a safe person to ask, "Is this the right thing to do?" before they acted. They even created a small, quarterly award not for highest sales, but for the best example of good faith in action, nominated by peers. The day the program was launched company-wide, with a video message from Robert Thorne himself, Leo felt a nervous anticipation. This wasn't a law. It was a cultural experiment. Would people believe it? Or would they see it as just another corporate poster on the wall? The first sign came a few days later. Leo was getting coffee when a woman from the marketing department, someone he'd never met, approached him. She looked a little hesitant. "Hi," she said. "You're Leo, right? From the new ethics team?" "Yes, that's me," he said, bracing for a complaint. "I just wanted to say, my team lead had to leave early yesterday because her kid was sick. A big client request came in, time-sensitive. The old rule was that only the team lead could authorize the response. I knew what to do. I used to be afraid to even touch it, but I remembered that good faith video. My intent was to help the client and not let the team down. So I did the work and sent it, copying my lead's boss so he knew. This morning, Instead of getting an angry email, my lead thanked me, and her boss said, "Good initiative." She smiled, a real relieved smile. It just felt different. So, thanks. That was the moment Leo knew it was working. It wasn't about him, or even about Maya. It was about giving permission back to people to be human at work. Months later, Leo was no longer just the guy who got fired. He was a respected project lead. He and Maya had become an effective team. She had the vision and the authority. He had the grounding and the trust of the staff. They argued sometimes, but it was always about the work, about making things better. One evening, they were working late on the next phase of the program. The office was quiet, much like it had been on that rainy night that started it all. Maya leaned back in her chair. "You know," she said, "when I stood on that stage at the gala, I was angry. I wanted to tear down what happened to you." Leo nodded, finishing a sentence on his document. "I know. But what we've built," she continued, "it's stronger than just tearing something down. We didn't just fix a mistake. We built something new in its place." Leo saved his work and looked out the window at the darkening sky. He thought about the long walk from Braxton's office, the feeling of the cardboard box in his hands. He thought about the cold weight of injustice. That weight was gone now. In its place was something solid, something useful. It had a good foundation, he said, turning back to her with a small, tired smile. It just needed a little air in the tires. Maya laughed, a genuine, easy sound in the quiet office. It wasn't a story about a prince rescuing a princess or a secret genius getting revenge. It was simpler and truer. It was a story about how one small, quiet act of help, nearly crushed by a big, loud system, was found, repaired, and then used to repair the system itself. Leo picked up his bag to go home, not as a victim, not as a hero, but as a builder. And for the first time in a very long time, the future at Axiom Corp looked not just secure, but bright.